I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. Robert Oppenheimer was said to have uttered these words from the Hindu scriptures upon witnessing the first explosion, the first detonation of an atomic bomb in southern New Mexico in 1945. I'm Robert Martinez, state historian, and this is New Mexico History in 10 Minutes. Today I want to talk to you about New Mexico entering the space age and the atomic age. We can't talk about one without the other because it is essentially New Mexico's entry into the modern world. What I love about New Mexico history is while we're often in the middle of nowhere, we oftentimes seem to find ourselves in the middle of world events. It might be serendipity, fate, the hand of God, who knows? But I do know that New Mexico is in the early to mid 20th century at the forefront of these two major scientific and even political movements. Robert Goddard is considered the father of rocketry. He was a rocket scientist, maybe the first. He starts to experiment with rockets in the Midwest in the 1920s, but by 1930 he moves to Roswell, New Mexico. Interesting, since later there'll be a lot of intrigue and rumors about space aliens and Roswell. But let's go back to 1930. Robert Goddard starts to experiment with rockets right here in New Mexico. He launches many rockets, hundreds of them, some reaching heights of over 1,000 feet. Now, this may not seem like a big deal now, but back then that was a marvel. It was amazing. And it helps plant the seeds, both imaginative and scientific, for space exploration, but also modern weaponry using rockets. There's some precedence to this in science fiction writers such as H.G. Wells and Jules Verne. We know that they had amazing imaginations, and there were also films in the 1920s dealing with this idea that humans would have spaceships that would take us to the moon and to places beyond, such as Mars, Venus, and other planets, and take us to the far reaches of the galaxy to explore. Well, we know that Robert Goddard was definitely instrumental in this movement, and therefore, so is New Mexico. We even have a museum dedicated to space history in Alamogordo, New Mexico. If you get a chance, you have to visit it. It is brilliant. And it shows New Mexico's place squarely at the center at the early movements that started the exploration of space, rockets, spaceships, and ultimately a race against the Soviets to see who would get to space first and get to the moon first. These were political, military, but also journeys of the imagination. These ideas would feed movies in the 1950s, such as George Powell's War of the Worlds, based on the book by H.G. Wells, or Invasion of the Body Snatchers. These ideas fed not only our desires to explore space, but also fears and anxieties about people or creatures or forces coming from the outside and imposing themselves on us. At the time, we were dealing with the Cold War and the idea that communists from places like the Soviet Union or China might come and invade the United States and turn us all into communist robots. Well, that never happened, but these movies show the fear of not only creatures, whether from the Soviet Union or Mars, coming here and changing us, but also fed this desire for us to go and explore beyond our natural boundaries. So, Robert Goddard, very important in New Mexico history, rocket history, and the space age. Robert Oppenheimer had visited New Mexico as a boy, and he really liked it. This means that by the time the United States has entered World War II in 1941 and then engages Nazi Germany in 1944, we enter into an arms race with Germany. But it's more than an arms race, it's an atomic arms race. It was a fast and brutal race to see who could develop an incredibly powerful and devastating weapon such as the atomic bomb. So, um, Robert Oppenheimer and other physicists and scientists were recruited from places like Germany and other parts of the world. They were of Jewish background and other backgrounds, intensely intelligent and visionary, to come to the high desert of New Mexico, a place, again, seemingly hidden from the world, the middle of nowhere, yet the center of developments that would change world history. Now, New Mexico was not the only place that was looked at. There were other places looked at, such as Nevada, Oklahoma, anywhere where there were just not that many people were considered for this project dubbed the Manhattan Project. But the Boys Ranch up near Los Alamos, just northwest of Santa Fe, was eventually chosen, and there had been native Puebloan peoples in that area for centuries, and also Hispano New Mexicans had lived in the area, but these people were cleared out, and the area was selected and developed as the laboratory to create this atomic weapon. Oppenheimer and his scientists, which were men and women, we have to include the women who were instrumental in this operation, had to face clearance with the U.S. Military and government, of course. And then up on East Palace Street, just to the side of the plaza in Santa Fe, that's where these people or anyone going to the labs in Los Alamos had to go to get clearance and to be taken up to that part of New Mexico. It was an intense operation. No doubt the levels of stress were high, but it was the United States and specifically New Mexico that ultimately developed this weapon. It was taken to Trinity site near White Sands over near Alamogordo, New Mexico, and ultimately, I have this vision of this bomb in pieces being taken through some remote road through Albuquerque or some area of Albuquerque or a part of Albuquerque, I don't know where, and taken down and then put together and detonated. The stories I heard growing up was that the scientists, as brilliant as they were dealing with some unknowns. They weren't sure if such an atomic blast might consume the atmosphere of the planet Earth, or if it would be a controllable blast. A friend of mine told me that his relatives in Carrizozo, in that area, had been told that the bomb would be detonated at night, and that so they waited to see if they could see anything, and they said that for a brief moment in the middle of the night when that bomb went off, it was like daylight, like it is right now in Albuquerque. That's how bright and powerful that bomb was. Well, once they found out that it worked, the bomb was then taken by a ship to the Pacific, and then the first bomb was detonated over Hiroshima, Japan, and it killed somewhere in the area of 300,000 people when all was said and done. And then a couple days later at Nagasaki, to really break the spirit of the Japanese, another bomb was detonated over that city. So this event or series of events squarely puts New Mexico on the world stage. And to this day, New Mexico is known as a place where modern weapons are developed at places like Los Alamos, Sandia Labs, White Sands Missile Range. And we are still dealing with the good, the bad, and the ugly of the development of these atomic weapons in New Mexico. That's it for New Mexico History in 10 minutes. I'll see you next time. Adios. Goodbye.